Three ball from CG43. They're in front.
This is flat out ridiculous.
From a beautiful left hand, in and out finish, the old-fashioned way.
Newell gets to the basket with one to come. From there again. You have got to be kidding me. Tyson step, wraps it up.
Hello everyone, it is spooky Halloween night and this is the NBL Pocket Podcast. We are ready for a kooky, spooky, creepy night of NBL basketball. You've got me over here in Western Australia doing the intro for possibly the first time ever. That's right, it's a creepy night. And over there on the East Coast, potentially, yes, still in the throes of the Halloween Eve at 11:30 odd at night, it is one and only NBL Pocket Podcast, Joseph Core. Joseph, how are you?
Canyon. That was, I don't know what that was. It'll do. It'll be fine. That was funny. That was great. It is still early or late Halloween Eve, and it has been a scary week in the NBL.
Have you given the children their candy?
I had a Turkish delight, personally. I have a box of Cadbury favourites, but no one came knocking.
There you go. Well, it depends on the suburb you live in. I kept all the lights. I had no chocolate, no candy. I kept all the lights off. I was just hiding inside. Leave me alone, everybody. I'm not here.
What are we talking about on the program?
We have got a full rundown. We got to talk the Wildcats. We always seem to end up talking the Wildcats. I hope it's not my own Perth bias, but there's a lot going on in that organisation. We need to talk about them. We need to talk about Brisbane. Boring, no more Brisbane.
Mm-hmm.
We got to talk about league leaders, Melbourne United.
Yep.
What's going on in New Zealand, Joe? Got some question marks about them. And then I've got a bit of we've got the annual time to cut the import. Okay,
Indeed.
So we got to figure that out. Who are we sending on a plane back to whence they came? And finally, I've got a little bit of a question for you, Joe, about your engagement with the NBL more broadly. And so we're going to save that one for last.
Oh, you want to save that one for last? Because I wanted to do it first.
Oh, it's your show.
Is it really, though? I feel like this show is for the people. If I can take a second, though, I really enjoy chatting to people about NBL on Twitter. I really enjoy it. And there's a lot
Twitter,
of patrons.
X,
pardon me. I enjoy chatting with people. I haven't quite made the jump to Threads. I had X or Twitter long before Threads, and I enjoy chatting to people on there. People are good. They're responsive. I feel like X has cleaned up this season. I think there's less malarkey. It used to be more hateful a couple of years ago or even last year. This year it's kind of, I don't know, it's leveled out some. What do you think? Oh, you're not even on there.
I'm not even on it because of the whole disaster that it's become. But maybe that's why it's leveled out. Maybe people aren't there anymore.
Well, I think that's certainly the case. Less people are on there. And maybe the NBL's sort of only, I don't know, maybe it's spreading its influence a little bit further and putting stuff on Threads and Instagram, which isn't quite filtering to me. So it feels like that the conversation on X is really fan-driven. But I don't know, maybe I'm off about that. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I basically spend my NBL engagement these days is basically down to two sources. Well, three. It's all the league channels, the feel-good stuff on their website, which I glance at. It's so saccharine. I find it really hard to read.
Right.
I like going to the NBL Pocket Podcast Discord. Got to get on that.
Can I apologise to the people of the Discord? I just haven't been in there. I'm embarrassed to say I haven't. And again, I apologise to the patrons as well. The patrons, being honest, that's just the rattle of the tin. You get nothing for it. I won't pretend that you get a T-shirt or even much conversation. It's just if you want to do it, we really, really, really appreciate it. We should give more back, but we just don't. It's just a way for people to do that. So we really do appreciate people who do.
Yeah, look, I'm on the Discord all the time. You showed up one moment the other day and said, hi, everybody. And you had absolutely people in there like cucking big time for you.
Really?
And I'm like, guys, I'm here every day. And they're like, yeah, you need to play a little more hard to get, Andrew. I'm like, wow, okay.
Is that right?
Joe's the one they want. Right? You got to get in on the Discord, mate. You're the one they want to talk to.
I'm flattered now. God, there's a bulge in my trousers now. I'm all hard. This is great. I'll get on the Discord, I promise. I think, honestly, the other thing as well, my KO this season has been reliable. Last season, it used to drop out all the time. It's been really reliable. So I've been watching these games. I've been watching them on my phone. I've been moving around. So when you talk about engagement, I've been engaged. I want to know if you have. It feels like you asked the question because you haven't been.
Well, interesting that you've been watching the games because you're one step ahead of Corey Homicide Williams last year. So well done on that. Thoughts out to him this season, of course. No cheap shots, but
We love Corey.
we love Corey. But come on, Corey.
Other than that cheap shot.
Half those games you talked about, you didn't watch. We know it.
We did. This is the funny thing as well. I see, and Andrew Gaze, I adore Andrew Gaze as a player, a coach, not so much. Media personality, absolutely amazing. But if you can tell me at his advanced age, or his age, he's still a young man, that he's watching the NBA games. Because I remember he'd do shows on the NBA. I'm like, really? Like, Andrew Gaze is not at Albert Park Golf Course. He's watching the Lakers play Charlotte. Like, give me a break, you know? And I love Gaze. He's great. But he wasn't watching the games, as you say. But sorry, you were saying.
No, so let's talk about engagement. I am actually less engaged in the league this year.
Why?
Why? I don't really know. I was trying to figure out exactly why. And I think the only thing I can boil it down to, well, okay, there's two things I can put down. Personal life, a little more complicated this year than it was last year. Had more time available to me to sit on a couch and watch basketball than I do this year. So from a personal point of view, things have changed a little bit. But from the league, I think for me it's just the style of play. I find it less interesting the way teams play. And
From what perspective?
I think I'm finding that
Too many threes.
the ratio of 3-pointers to 2-pointers, basically, if I was to boil it down to one item, it would be that. It would be almost every team, if not all teams, just shoot a barrage of 3-point shots. It's a steady diet of pick and roll, driving, kick out, 3-point shot, rebound, rinse and repeat. And it just gets a bit monotonous.
I mean, have you got any stats to back that up? Because I've only looked at the Wildcats 3-point ratio. The stats may tell a completely different tale. I'll tell you what, I'll put that up on Twitter and Threads. When I get some time at work, I'll look at that. But I look at the Wildcats and I do say they're the only ones I looked at because we were going to talk about them furthermore.
Yeah.
210 3-point attempts at 30%. So they're jacking up a lot and making very few. 40% of the Wildcats' attempts have been 3-point shots. Now, I don't know if that's high for the league or low. I just haven't calculated that yet. But from what I'm hearing from you, and honestly, maybe my own observation, I think that may be probably the high end of the scale, but pretty close to the pin, I think. And that, well, like you say, that can be boring.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not that they're not all Steph Curry shooters out here in our NBL, are they? So you're watching a lot of shots clang off the ring. And it basically just comes down to if a team shoots well on a night from 3-point range, they win. And if they don't, they lose. And there's very little beyond that influences a result these days. And I just find it kind of boring. I like it when teams have different dynamics. Like I think back to the good old days, when I was a young tacker and you had the Southeast Melbourne Magic who were just known for being defensive knock-em-outs, and they're up against...
but Melbourne are defensive.
Yeah, but their offense is still really the same. Don't you think?
Their offense is, if they're a 3-and-D kind of team, yeah. They do pass the ball well. I've been actually... They were always going to play good defense. We knew that. I didn't think they were going to be as sort of move the ball as oriented as that. I think they actually move the ball. They're quite an attractive, they're not a attractive offense, but they're not too bad. And Clark's fun to watch. He's real silky. I haven't been as unappetized as you by the sound of it.
I'm just looking forward to the one day when we have a coach who it sort of does the next version of Moneyball. So the stats era was heralded by 3-point percentages. It's either at the rim or on the 3-point line. I'm just waiting for that next coach to zag and say, look, everybody, all the defense is collapsing around the rim or, getting us out beyond the 3-point line. let's attack at the mid-range and let's shock them. I don't know. I want something. I just want something new in the game, a new strategy. Is that too much to ask for, Joe? And I
don't think that's too much to ask for.
Yeah. So
what about engagement? What about otherwise? What about the broadcast and what the NBL is doing as a league?
Yeah. So the broadcast as well for me, it's very sameish. Every game feels the same. I feel like I'm just watching the same program. And look, a lot of I've actually had less time to watch live this season. So to be fair, I'm actually fast forwarding through a lot of the segments and the halftime breaks and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not really in a strong position to comment on those because I've just not had a chance to watch live too often. But from a broadcast point of view, it's just like it feels very samey.
Samey from last season or game to game?
Game to game. I love the fact that they're putting crews back in stadium, like commentary crews.
Yeah.
It should have always been that way. It's brilliant. I don't like the bunker work, and especially because it's just so Melbourne dominant. It's like, here's Ryan Brokoff, here's Alan Williams, here's Mitch Creek.
Yeah, and that's a deal that's been done with Jam TV, which is Eddie Maguire's company, who I admire, but they're doing their thing and they have an inroad to those players. What I find interesting about the broadcast is, you're so right about the commentary, and it comes down to what we were talking about last week, where the Utah, and this is a bit of a bloated story, but nonetheless, the Utah Jazz have bought back their rights from their local Foxtel distributors, and they're going to start putting out their games, because what they found was that if you put it on cable, yes, you get the money from the cable company, but your games just get seen by so few people. And the NBL's in this weird spot where it couldn't just jump over to free-to-air. Doesn't have that backing from a 7, 9, or 10 just yet. And it certainly wouldn't get prime time. And if you're not on prime time on a commercial network, it's just not, you're spinning your wheels. But then to go on ESPN and Foxtel, because that's getting older, like so few people have Foxtel, that your games are getting seen by less. So they're in this weird position where they've got to kind of make a decision where are they going to jump in and get their own rights? And imagine if, let's say, a Perth could own their own rights and make their own show. Now, I remember back in the day, it didn't quite work out, but if you just had someone who, and I'm always about vested interest, like if the Wildcats had ownership of their own rights, they would make sure they do a good or at least a better job of it because there's money to be made for them. But right now, the teams don't have that relationship. Like I understand that a lot of the TV deal just goes straight to NBL headquarters itself. It doesn't really get to the teams as much. So I'm looking at a Paul Smith. I'm gonna point finger at Paul Smith. Paul Smith, business guy, got plenty of money in his pocket, not afraid to take a risk. He's done some great stuff with Repicom and a few things. Imagine if he took control of Kings games and they do high quality production stuff. Their new podcast looks good.
Yep. They did that
physically.
They did that show, didn't they? That sort of behind the scenes thing. I think they did. Was that
all their kind of King Domi Road to the Championship? All that stuff looks great. I wish I could say the exact name of the guy who makes it, but I've seen him on LinkedIn and thought that guy does really good work. So I just thought, imagine if they could do something different that's very Sydney specific and get their market and get the 7 million people that live in Sydney. That I think is the way forward, but tricky deal. Very easy to set on a podcast, very difficult to do in reality. But I think we're coming to that tipping point where, as you say, the same, and you've got to get out from this Melbourne thing. You've got to start. The clubs have got to start stepping to the table a bit more.
Yep.
And that's my 2 cents.
Well,
the rant.
Speaking of, in terms of my engagement, what I have been engaged in is hate watching the Perth Wildcats. They are must-see TV because they are so much fun to hate watch at the moment, and I'm loving it.
You got questions. We spoke in the week. We did a rundown. You were like, Wildcats. Let's talk about the 3 points off them. I'm going to steal your thing. The first one we had was sack John Rillie. That was the question. Not that we said to do it, but you posed the question.
Yep.
And are you prepared to narrow it down to a yes or a no?
Yes, I think they should.
Do you think they should? Do you think they will?
No, they will not. But I think they should.
I agree with you. I think, man, but here's the thing. He coached basically the same roster last year to what would be expected of a roster of this ilk, sort of 14 to 16 wins and, that 4th, 5th play-in kind of spot.
Yep.
Why is this season different for Rillie?
I haven't seen much learning from him based on last season. So last season, they scored the ball and struggled defensively and struggled with rebounding this season. All the same problems exist. You've got a bunch of players that don't really like each other, and I don't see him bringing them closer together. I don't see him creating a shared goal, a shared objective. I just don't think that he's got the ear of the players, and I think certain players, and probably very important players, have potentially checked out on what he's saying and don't have a belief in what he's putting forward.
I mean, you saw for people out there who may have seen the social media comment from Bryce Cotton's wife. I want to say it's Rachel. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, basically saying that this team lacks role, players lack definition, role definition. We don't know what we're doing. She hasn't, that the only problem with that, she's happy to say that, but the only problem is, that it's not, it'd be unlikely it's her thought,
Yes.
I think that's like The Simpsons. That's a conversation that's been had in bed as to why work's not going so well for Mr. Cotton, who we love on this podcast. We think he's a good player. So that's where it's worrying, because that got blown up, that quote, but it's correct. I don't think anyone would doubt the content of what was said there. Saying it and putting it up on socials, probably not what you should have done, but no one could look at that and disagree.
No.
But is that on Rillie necessarily, or is that on the GM? No.
Well, it's actually on the GM. So if you're going to sack Rillie, Danny Mills should not escape scrutiny here. This is a guy that's been in charge of multiple failed rosters, has red flags that any fan would have seen has been ignored by him. He's been slow to move. He was slow to change imports last season. Just poor decision making. How he's paying Mitch Norton and Todd Blanchfield a lot of money not to play for them. Just crazy stuff. I do not rate him at all. It's amazing. I wish I'd had some random job in the NBA, because then I could be a NBL GM as well. Apparently that's what it takes.
Ouch. Canyon. Oh man, you're hotter than a $2 pistol. Listen, let's go back to Rillie, and here's the case for getting rid of Rillie, I think, in my mind. Number one is Usher. The license to just come down and pull up, you can tell he's sort of operating within this weird system. He has no idea what the length of what he can do is.
Yep.
And he had that huge first game out, and then the next couple of games showed the same license, and then last game in the loss against Brisbane played half the minutes he's accustomed to. So that shows me where Rillie's doing this. He's lost the room where he's now he's pulling guys, and it's just not the strategy of a seasoned coach. If you believe in your players, you kind of drag them, but don't. He got made a scene of like that benching from Usher. That's like disciplining a child.
Yep.
You're going to sit the whole fourth quarter and stuff like that. That's like, ooh. It's hard for a player to take that hit. Usher's 25. That's hard for a person of 35, let alone 25, to take that professional hit on the snout and come back. The other one is Sarr. Plays in these weird combinations. Wasn't Sarr starting at the start of the year and then missed time?
Yeah, it's been all over the place. The starting unit is mixed up. Sometimes it's Jesse Wagstaff.
Wagstaff started games, and then in his 400th doesn't get on the court.
Yeah, 450. Well, not his 451st, wasn't it? So, his home celebration is 450th. The whole week, the social media team at Perth Wildcats have been doing Wagstaff week. The guy doesn't get on court.
That'd be okay if he hadn't played up to this point, but he started a couple of weeks before it.
Read the room, John, really.
So really, where's the logical thought? You can follow someone on a logical thought off a cliff, but right now it's just zigzagging. And then the other one is sort of the Websters, Ty Webster in particular.
Yep.
I played quite well under Shamir, sort of showed a few things. Now just looks erratic and without purpose. It's kind of strange. I wouldn't say it's sad, but it's strange. So they're the three things I look at. Whereas if we want to say get rid of Mills, the big condemnation for me of Mills is the Norton move. Blanchfield, I understood that wasn't working out, but Norton was a point guard and a set-up point guard and a guy who defended the ball. And the Wildcats are low in defensive rating, as they were last year. They were dead last. But there's a difference between your overall defensive rating and your defense at moments that matter. And Norton brought that. And then also, Norton actually attacked the basket. And Rillie and the Wildcats are trying to play this kind of 7 seconds or less D'Antoni type thing. But And yes, they're casting up a number of threes, and that's fine. But that system is also predicated on trying to get a layup first, getting feet in the paint, and then going back out within 7 seconds. Right now, the Wildcats just get over quarter court. The ball doesn't even go inside the three-point line, and they're jacking it up. It's not really going to work. They kind of had it last year. Thomas would get a number of layup baskets. Norton would hit the glass. But then also Norton, in moments where it did slow down, he could actually get it to Cotton. That hasn't happened. Norton probably should have hung around. He had that really good semi-final game.
Yeah, I don't understand.
That's where Danny Mills
It's a bizarre decision. You look at Norton now, you're exactly right. It'd be perfect for this team. Anything that would take minutes away from Ty Webster would be a great thing to have. I'm not a fan of his. You talk about hate watching, man, but there are just so many players to hate watch. Ty Webster, Jordan Usher. Oh, boy.
Well, let's talk about that. Play. You've got here, do they fire the players? Do they make a move? And if they do, what should they do? What do you think?
Okay, so if I'm GM, I'm firing Jordan Usher.
Oh, wow,
okay.
You're moving. Okay.
Yeah, I'm moving him on. I'm bringing in a different import. Probably a point guard. I'm giving more time to Henschel and the young guys and letting them develop, given that the season's probably cooked anyway. And I'm all about this season trying to rebuild a team that likes each other, because I am not sensing that at all. So I'm benching Ty Webster, so he's not going to get much court time. Usher's gone. I'm going to play Alex Sarr a lot. I'm going to run Hiram Harris for some role definition and a guy who actually just wants to give effort. Bit of Michael Harris. And Ben Henschel alongside Bryce Cotton. Very clear pecking order. Bryce Cotton's there to do the scoring, and I'm going to run sets for him all night long.
Tell you what I'd do. I don't know if I'd sack anyone. I mean, you're probably right. I mean, if you had better options, you'd probably move on from Usher or whatever, but I'm not going to campaign for that just yet. What I would say is this, though. I would go out, if I was John Rillie, I'd go out and buy a whole bunch of, those white priest collars? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'd put them on every player and say, listen, all of you guys, other than Bryce Cotton, I wouldn't give him one. I'd give everyone else one and say, you guys, you're now men of the cloth, as in Cotton. We are actually going to – that was a roundabout way to get to that. But I'm just saying, I'd be like, Bryce Cotton's our best player on offense, and you're actually going to work out here's where he likes the ball, here's where he wants the ball, and here's how you're going to get him the ball and where you're going to feed off of that shot, be it rebounding position or a cut or something. Yeah. That just needs to happen. That's really his biggest red flag, is that Cotton's having his worst statistical year at 31 when he should be kind of either prime or sub-prime. The idea that he's washed or done is ridiculous to me.
There's just not one predictable shot coming out of the Wildcats offense at this point, and that is just that's a disaster. I love that. Men of the cloth. Love it. Beautiful.
Like that. That's sort of that right then.
So let's
move.
You
think that, but you agree that I just want to say, you think they're not going to do it. They're going to do nothing, aren't they?
No, they're done. They're not making finals.
I don't think they're going to cut. They're not going to cut. They're not going to cut. Really, they're not going to do shit.
No, they're going to save money. They're going to save money. They're going to try and milk the fans for what they're worth, get the money, and roll on another season. Who cares? It's all grist for the mill when you're in the media.
That's exactly what I say. SEN lost $9.5 million last financial year. They're not going to pay out, really. They're not going to spend a dime. They don't have to. And more the point, the membership money, it's all like it's paid. It's paid. It's done. Yeah. You're done. Like, it's already spent. I'm sorry. Nothing to refund. I want to ask you this. The Wildcats' next play, in this order, you just say win or loss. 36ers at home.
I'm going to say win on that one.
Yeah, I think so too. At United, that's a loss, obviously. Breakers at home. That's a dangerous one. That's one where if they're going to sack Rillie, if he loses that one, that's one where you go Breakers at home. They're 1-4. That's a death sentence if you lose that.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if the Breakers have replaced Cheatham by then.
If they've got Tyler Cook by then the Wildcats may be in a bit of trouble on that one. And then they play the Taipans at home.
Yeah.
I think they're going to lose that game.
Yeah, Taipans, at least they're motivated.
Motivated, play D. Yeah. Anyway, the 2-5 Wildcats. Let's move on. Brisbane. Let's talk about them.
Yeah. So my question to you is: are Brisbane a chance? Like, I think we'd pretty much all written them off, right, as a real threat in any of this competition. They were spoilers. They didn't really have a lot going for them. They had the whole Bain situation. But they seem like they might have turned things around.
Well,
or is it fool's gold?
Yeah, their point guard's a bit of a winner. Like Norton, when was the last time he was a part of a losing season? His stats weren't great last year. He looked a bit hobbled, but they won games.
Seriously,
And
are you
he's
saying
been
the
a
loss of
winning point
Shannon Scott is a benefit for them?
No, it's not a benefit. No, I wouldn't go that far, but they just play D. They knew, as we knew they would, they play defense under this new assistant coach. So are they a chance? A chance of what? To win the championship? No.
Just to make some noise.
Oh, they'll make noise. I think they've already made noise to be 4-4, and they've beaten the JJs. They've beaten New Zealand, which I still think is actually quite a good team. They beat them when they were relatively strong. And they have beaten Perth in Perth. I mean, I don't know if that carries any cachet anymore, but to travel all that way across the country, you still got to beat Bryce Cotton. Still got to stop him. They did it. Tip the cap.
I like some of the... I like that young guy.
Playing chance.
Bannon? John Bannon? You there, Joe?
He shot well.
Yeah, I really like the look of him. It's like he does everything that's within his skill set and nothing beyond it. And he seems like I think he's only 22. He seems to play a lot more with an older head than that. I think I really like him. And
but Sobey's putting up the best points per game average of the last 5 years in his career.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's back, isn't he? It's like Adelaide Sobey.
Has finally been defined, I would say, well or accurately. Go figure. He's playing well.
It just took
what Rachel Cotton was on about.
Took 2 point guards to be added to the roster to figure out how to unlock Nathan Sobey. Amazing.
Tell me this. Can this be unlocked? A way to beat Melbourne United. Can it be unlocked?
No. This team is so much better than everybody else. They can hurt you in so many ways.
I didn't see it coming. I thought they'd be good, and I knew they'd defend. I just didn't know they'd score as well as they have been. For people at home, they're first in defensive rating at an astronomical rate. I mean, they just constrict teams so badly. And then they're fourth in offensive rating. So their best defense and their upper table in offense. I just don't know what's the recipe to beat them. Who have they lost to?
Oh gosh, didn't they? I should know this off the top of my head. I've forgotten. The Melbourne fans be screaming at me. Jack Jumpers, yeah.
Jack Jumpers went into Melbourne, and that Scott Roth has kind of been the thorn in the Vickerman side.
Yeah. But I think Jack Jumpers has gone off the boil a little since then as well. I just don't. I think Melbourne, they're really defining themselves now. They've got sort of weapons across the court in every aspect. They've got the rangy Luke Travers, they've got the pesky Shaley, they've got the powerful Huck Porty, they've got the scoring Golding, and they got the super sub JLA. It's just ridiculous. They
just play D. It'll be another season again where the top four teams will have the top four defensive rating for about the sixth year in a row. And then I think Clark's the big one for me. He gets a basket. He just gets scores. He's so silky. He's really fun to watch.
Yep. And they just have guys that all their players as well can score. They have different styles of scoring. Golding is the flashy shooter from outside. Clark spot up, hit it. Yeah, Travers with those soft dunks. It's just a bit of everything. And it's like, pick your poison, and you're probably going to lose.
I think, is there a weak spot? I think that the only weak spot is the one that Tasmania exploited to win in Melbourne, which is when Doyle went at Golding really hard defensively. Golding, until this is just Chris Golding down to the ground. I like Chris Golding as a player, but I think if you went back, and I meant to do this before we started recording, but well, people at home, I decided to watch The Masked Singer instead. If you must know, I wanted to see who the giant hot dog was or whatever the heck it was. I didn't do this, but I think if you went back over Golding's last sort of 3 or 4 years, I think you'd see that his highest score in those seasons comes against Illawarra. And he scored 33 against them last time out, and I guarantee that'll be his top score for the year. And that's what a pro does. When there's points to be gotten, he's a hustler. If anyone's give and grab, and Illawarra give up plenty of points from the perimeter, and he took them. Now, I could be talking really out of school if I'm wrong on those stats, but I'll go back and have a look at them. But yeah, that's their only weak point. It got exploited against Tasmania, but they've got guys like your Tanner Krebs play well. Yeah, they're going to be tough.
Yeah.
Who's their biggest opposition? Just give me a name without a rationale.
Jack Jumpers. Jack Jumpers. Yeah, it was. Yeah, them or Sydney, but I went Jack Jumpers.
What do you want to talk about next?
What I want to talk about next is the what's going on in New Zealand.
They're just hurt, and I'm going to quote a fan of the show. I think, good guy, Dan Ewing.
Oh yeah,
Dan Ewing.
God damn.
Told me some time ago. Because listen, injuries will kill an NBL team. Don't worry about chemistry. Don't worry about even talent so much. Injuries kill you in the NBL because you've just got so inflexible roster movement and contracts and so on and so forth. And they're fatigued, and now they're hurt, and they're 1-4. Full stop. That's all I'm going to say. Have you got anything more to add?
No, it's a good point. Yeah, Cheatham, losing him is a massive hit. Will McDowell-White hasn't really found form yet, and that's a worry because he was coming in as a Boomers level point guard for them.
It's almost as if last year he was playing for a contract and now he has one.
Joe, come now.
Harsh?
That's a bit harsh.
Sorry, Ken, bro. I lost track of myself. I don't know what happened.
Oh, boy. Just incidentally, my microphone is driving me crazy with this setup tonight. I've got...
Really?
Yeah. It keeps changing its levels, even though I've got automatic levels adjustment turned off. This new setup, Joe, we got to keep working on it.
I can't help you, pal. We talked about engagement. We talked about the 3-point ratio. We're really coming to the end. We're going to get to our favourite segment of the show, really, in its short lifespan. Cut the import? ? Is what we're going into.
Yeah, game show time. Who are we going to cut?
Say again?
It's time for a game show. It's cut the import.
Insert measure here. We kind of spoke about Usher, but just to go over him again, 15.6 points per game. Had that first game of the year, scored 35.
Yeah, take that
since
out
then,
and then recalculate.
Yeah, listen to the numbers since. 12, 16, 20, forget who that was against, 11, and most recently 4 points. And most games have been shot, well, last game he shot 1 of 6 or something from the field, but he's probably, outside of that one outlier, that first game where he shot 35 points on 65%, he's been in the low 30% from the field range. You've already said it, you'd be cutting import, you'd be cutting him and moving on, but I just don't trust Danny Mills to scout anyone better.
No, I don't trust him either.
And I don't hate Usher's game. I actually think there's something there. He's athletic. That first game showed he could actually shoot. He needs boundaries.
I think it's
I'm not out on Usher.
It's mental. It's mental application with him, I think. Mm-hmm. So that's the real
see him
challenge.
Snap at that fan?
Yes.
Snap at that fan on his...
Yep. So he's not...
You call him Shrimp?
Yeah, Shrimp. Yeah, among other things.
To be fair, the fan, and I'm not putting down the fan either, the fan did tag him. Like, hey, Jordan Usher. That's like, you're coming at him with a lance there. Like, don't be surprised if he texts you privately back. Don't screenshot that. I would have just taken it like I would have mentioned it in passing with friends, but I wouldn't have put it up on Twitter. I wouldn't have done that.
Interesting to see if he falls afoul of the social media guidelines.
I will say this. Usher did come from a losing team in Turkey. His team in the Turkish league went 10-20. So, that's obviously not all on him. It's a team game, but is the scout? What were they expecting from this guy? they put huge tickets on the guy as well. Oh, defensive player of the year nominee and this and that. Like, how about you just play? Just play a couple of games. Not Usher. I mean, just Wildcats in general. Just play some good basketball for the first time in 2 years.
I'll say this, Joe. If was it Rajon Tucker that played for United last year?
Yeah, Rajon Tucker. That's right.
I reckon he'd be a better fit than Usher on this Wildcats team.
Rajon Tucker was a really good player. Melbourne had their issues last year. I mean, he's a guy who can't defend and he's all over the place, but it fit right in at Wildcats. But he could score and brought some aggression at the hoop.
Yeah.
Usher's just too content to blaze away from the outside, and he needs a tap on the shoulder. I'm really interested to see the Wildcats over the next 3 games because they can't afford to drop anymore. They're 1-2-5 or something?
Yeah.
If they drop 2 more games in the next 4, they're done. Moving on to the next one. Shannon Scott, injured at Brisbane. What are you doing?
It depends on how long he's out for, but if it's a lengthy out, I'm gonna have to say goodbye. Tough.
I like him as a player.
I like him too. I think he's a really good point guard. But if he's out long-term injured, Brisbane, if they want to have a hope, they need to get a guy on the court. So maybe it's an injury replacement situation rather than a full cut.
Yeah. They definitely need, although they're 4-4 and winning, they need a little bit of supplement, because they haven't really beaten, as we said, going back, they've only beaten the Jack Jumpers who are a good team. New Zealand and Perth were the others I thought were okay. Other than that, they've only beaten your Adelaides and stuff like that. So to get over those Southeast Melbournes routinely, to get over the other ones, they're going to need a bit of a push, but that's interesting. Tajima McCall was another guy you had on the list.
Yeah.
He's a lot of time.
He's not going to get cut, but he's never on the court.
It seems that way. They Cairns have a bad run of imports. They had Machado there, who missed a lot of time and sunk some seasons. So what are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm letting him go because I know he's beloved, right? Some imports just manage to find their way into a city and become beloved. And I feel like Taj McCall is that for the type ends, so he's not going to get cut. But I think if he was any other import, he would be because he's never there. And then when he does play, he's highly erratic. He's a wild player, and I think type ends have enough wild players as it is. I don't think they need another import in that way. So I'm going to cut him. See you, Taj. Thanks for the memories.
I'm not going to cut him. I think such a small team, you just need a guy who's an international who can take in new players and be like, yeah, this is war and this is what we do. And I think he does that. And I'm normally always about the talent, but now I'm kind of skewing towards. I think Adam Ford is just able to get so much good out of pretty average players or what looks to be average players. And then they beat Sydney the other day. How the hell did they beat Sydney?
I do not know.
That is crazy. Speaking of Sydney, so I would stay with McCall.
Okay.
Tajima McCall. Valentine. This is one I really want to speak to you about. This was a name you had. You cutting this guy or you keeping with him?
God, it's so tough because I've seen him play some really good moments. But I don't know. I just think you see the way they come along. Forgotten his name. Young fella, next star.
Alex Tui.
Tui, thank you. Sorry, I was stuck.
That's all right. They're almost identical players.
Yeah, and I think Tui's is he better? I don't know, but I think he's good enough. So I don't think you need an import spot with Valentine. I think you've got Tui. You just give him more minutes, and maybe you look for something different from Valentine. I don't really know what they need though. Maybe it's more of a shooting guard. But
let me give you a couple of stats on Valentine. So in the loss to Cairns, 7 points, 22% from the field in a loss. Valentine, have a guess at the percentage of his shot attempts and how many are from the 3-point line. If I'm articulating that question well.
I think
percentage of all his field goals attempted.
I reckon about 75% would be threes.
Pretty close. 67%.
Okay.
Have a guess how many free throw attempts he's had.
Three.
Nearly 200 minutes.
3, as he was fouled shooting a 3-pointer.
8 free throw attempts in nearly 200 minutes, 198 minutes. assist-to-turnover ratio. He's got 44 assists, 32 turnovers. Now, some of those assists have been spectacular, but when they go awry, he kind of throw the ball around a bit. So none of these stats are really jumping off the page. And, he's averaging sort of 12, 13 points a game. Cut him, keep him. It depends upon their ambition. If they're hell-bent on winning 3 in a row and being that team, I think the need is there to cut him. You're not getting rid of Adams, right?
No,
he's a stud. We like him. Who's their other import?
Do they have one?
Starting to question myself now. I don't think so. DJ Hogue. You're not getting rid of him.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, because he hasn't really played much. That's why.
He's just come back.
Yep.
So, a bit harsh on the loss to Cairns. But you're not getting rid of him.
No.
He's an NBL first teamer, I think, last season, or second team, one of the two. If you're serious about winning the third chip, your only movement is really with Valentine. And as you say, that team lacks, for me, similar to the Wildcats, in the paint diamondism. They're not getting to the foul line. And Valentine does what Hogue does, but not as well. He does what Tui does almost identically. Kind of slower moving, little bit of inside, but a lot of outside sort of stuff. I'm just not a fan of an import who's just only shooting threes. I need athletic heat on the rim. There are white Australian guys who can just shoot outside every time. We got plenty of them. I need someone who's going to attack the ring off the bounce and make things happen. And for me, it's not. I've got huge. So if their aspirations are third championship, I'm saying cut him. What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm cutting him. I'm cut.
If their ambition is to sort of chance it, like, maybe, we'll make the playoffs and see what happens. Yeah, okay. He's a decent player. Keep him around. But if Paul Smith and Bogut and Pongras, if they're looking at themselves seriously, they got to make a tough decision.
Yep. There you go.
Would they be better off if they cut Valentine and had signed Vasiljevic?
Yes.
I agree. I strangely agree. Although Vasiljevic is pretty heavy from the outside too, but I just think he's got just a little bit more. Yeah, especially with Hogue and Tui now kind of stepping up a bit. I agree.
Ironically, they probably think that too.
Well, we've come to the end. I don't really think there's much else to discuss.
That is it. So we wind down this spooky Halloween special. This microphone is driving me crazy tonight. I don't know. Stupid.
Yeah, I can hear your mic
it's
jumping
popping all over the place. You know what?
Oh, you did. You know what? We just run through the tape here. That's all we do. We're all balls and no dick here at NBL Pocket Pod. I'll probably cut that, but sometimes you say some things. It's a spooky episode. Had a little been bobbing for apples. Listen, thanks for everyone for listening. At NBL Pocket Pod on Twitter. If you like this episode, I don't know how you could, but become a patron. That'd be appreciated. Jump in the Discord. I'm sure the link, I think it's even in the notes, the episode notes.
Yep.
And outside of that, watch the games. I haven't even looked at the upcoming round, Canyon. Are you excited about anything? Does anything
I'm excited.
turn you on these days?
Yeah, I'm excited to hate watch that Wildcats game once more. If they take on Adelaide, that'll be fun.
At home. They can't lose that, surely. I'm just bringing up the NBL schedule on my app. We'll just very quickly have a look at the games coming up. Ooh, Brisbane, Southeast Melbourne. That'll be okay. That's on Thursday night.
Could be good.
Friday, New Zealand, Cairns, meh. Illawarra, Sydney, meh.
Yeah.
Saturday, Tasmania, Bullets. Bullets on a second of a back-to-back on the road.
Could be all right.
Wildcats, Adelaide, hate watch if you're a Cats fan. Southeast Melbourne, Cairns on Sunday. Sydney Kings, Breakers, a bit meh. And then Melbourne, Perth. In Melbourne, I just don't think Perth are a hope.
No way.
Prayer to come close.
No way. Flogged.
They're going to get held to like a really, 73 points or something and beaten badly. They're just hopeless. Anyway, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Canyon, do you want to say goodbye?
Goodbye.